misuse, and abuse, as you see right behind me. And drug use is a big problem in Nigeria and probably elsewhere around the world. But especially here, because we have all kinds of things like fake drugs. We have drugs that we use that are cheap, drugs that are not so cheap, but the use that was intended for those medications many times is not being used. So we're going to talk about that. I have a very dear friend and special guest on, a pharmacist, who's going to talk about this. But if you remember, we had another pharmacist come on, pharmacist Estelle Mbadiwe, and she talked about, at that time I thought she was exaggerating, but she's talked about the coming apocalypse, speaking about antibiotic resistance. And she's saying that this can change the world as we know it. If you think about it, antibiotics are among the most used drugs in the world for the slightest thing. An earache, a toothache, pain. I just had sex. A lady has just had sex, and the first thing she wants to do is take an antibiotic to prevent having an STD. Or she wants to prevent an infection of another kind, or even wants to prevent getting pregnant. She uses the antibiotic. Mothers are always so anxious about their kids. The first thing the child comes down with a fever, she wants to use an antibiotic, and she puts a lot of pressure on the doctors, the healthcare providers, to give this child an antibiotic. Many times it's not that. It's not a bacteria that is causing the problem. It could be a virus. Antibiotics have no place when it comes to viruses. So there's a lot to be known about this, and why this is so important. And again, back to Pharmacist Estelle, is that the coming apocalypse, antimicrobial resistance, drugs, bacteria, microbes are becoming super smart, and they're becoming super resistant. So many times, many of the antibiotics that have been developed, most microbes can find a way to evade them and be resistant to them. So you keep on having to give stronger and stronger and stronger antibiotics. The problem is that it takes a long time to develop a good antibiotic, and sometimes it can take up to $1 to $2 billion to actually come up with a new antibiotic. Well, after 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and you come up with an antibiotic, those microbes have been able to change and mutate and shift. And so the bottom line is that we're losing the war. So we need to become more intelligent about the use of antibiotics. And it's not just about antibiotics. We're going to talk about all those things in a few minutes. But at this point, I want you to take a listen at this video, and we'll be right back.
There's a national emergency creeping on us while we sleep as a nation.
There is a looming disaster approaching us very fast.
Serious big deal. We did a sleep on some bicycle.
Nka karịrị nsogbu codeine na tramadol butere anyị. Abun fatai tsanani har tafi abun ta same mu a arewa kwanakin baya da yan Boko Haram da Asambisa da Maiduguri.
Kí ló ń ṣẹlẹ̀?
It is antimicrobial resistance. Every day, doctors, pharmacists, lab scientists are faced with a huge dilemma in selecting the appropriate antibiotics for patients. Why? The organisms are getting resistant to virtually all antibiotics.
This crisis even gets worse when we consider the fact that farmers administer antibiotics to healthy animals to prevent sickness and sometimes to make them grow faster. We, in turn, take the residue of drugs in the meat we eat, thereby contributing significantly to antibiotic resistance in us.
So today, healthcare professionals are forced to use very complex antibiotics to treat very simple ailments. Surgeries are becoming riskier due to this great problem. Our lab reports have changed from this to this. So what can we do? Is it too late?
It's nearly late, but there's still some hope. You and I have a role to play.
First and foremost, don't take antibiotics if it is not recommended by your doctor or pharmacist.
Do not use leftover antibiotics and don't share with friends and family.
When you take antibiotics, strictly follow the instructions of the pharmacist. Even after feeling better, make sure you complete the dose.
Ọ bụrụ na ị hụrụ na mkpụrụ ọgwụ e nyere gị dị ọtụtụ, ma ọ bụ na ị gaghị aṅụchanwu ya n'oge e nyere gị, kọwara pharmacist gị ka o nyere gị aka chọpụta nke ahụ ị ga-aṅụ. nke na-adịghị ọtụtụ mana ṅụọ ya n'oge kwesịrị ịṅụ ya.
Antibiotics don't act on viruses. So when you have a cold or cough, you don't need antibiotics. Usually it will go away when the virus causing the cold dies off. What you need most times is rest. Talk to your pharmacist.
Ku daina siyan magani daga wanda bai da ilimin magani ko masu garwaya magani cikin leda. Kuna siyan magani daga hannun pharmacist, su ne aka ba su amanin siyar da magani. Za ku ga signage ɗinsu an sa wani RX sign a gaban shagon.
Giving tetracycline to children can be very dangerous, apart from money loss. Tetracycline in children can result in permanent yellow coloration of their teeth. Most diarrheas in children are caused by viruses. So the best way to prevent diarrhea in children is to immunize them. Vaccines are available in pharmacies. Talk to your pharmacist.
No go take antibiotics say you won't purify your blood. Abi you won't flush your system. Now that you do.
My dear ladies, using antibiotics after menstruation to cleanse your system is wrong. You're simply making yourself prone to antibiotic resistance.
You may think it's no big deal, but do you know that antibiotic resistance can be transferred to your unborn child?
When you're going to the hospital to visit a newborn baby and you're carrying antibiotics in your hampers, it's not a gift to the baby or to the mother. You're actually delivering a poison.
My brother, my sister, when I don't finish skin to skin, antibiotics no dey do shishi. Make I tell you, now one chance to enter so.
Take foods that contain prebiotics and probiotics that help to restore the good bacteria that has been damaged by the antibiotics. You can speak to your pharmacist. Wash and sanitize your hands as often as you can.
Do not buy drugs online unless the website or the social media handle of the pharmacy is verifiable or they have a physical address. No go enter one chance.
Do not fight your pharmacist if your request for antibiotics is declined. Of course, we need the money, but we love you more than the money.
It is sad to say, Nigeria is one of the very few places where any medicine can be brought anywhere. This must stop.
My great people, medicines are not sweet or lollipops. They can be very poisonous.
Sometimes I wonder, it looks like no one cares.
I care.
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 We're pharmacists, we care.
Welcome back. I am here with pharmacist Chris Ibadan, who is the superintendent pharmacist at the Shalom Pharmacy at Dunes Center in Maitama. Pharmacist Chris, thank you so much for making it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm sure it's been really, really busy time for you this Christmas time.
Yeah. I just started, so
Just
a lot
started.
of work to do.
I'm sure. Well, best of luck there.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've seen the video.
Yeah.
A lot is about antibiotics and the use and misuse of it. I want us to look at specific examples, not any generalities. What are some of the things you've seen in your 20, 30 years plus as a pharmacist
Okay.
that you've seen that Nigerians in particular just tend to abuse and misuse? Misuse is the right word, right?
All right. Okay, like Dr. Dio said at the introduction, there's an apocalypse coming. There are so many antibiotics that were useful or that were effective 10 years ago, and people take them now and they come back to you and say, oh, you sold me a fake drug. And it's not because the drugs are fake, but because they've been used wrongly. They've been used when the indication is not there. For example, somebody has a cough and comes to the pharmacy. I have a cough, I want an antibiotic, and they want a strong antibiotic. And sometimes I tell them, using this antibiotic for a cough, especially when the cough is maybe a viral infection, there's no fever, there's no test to show that, okay, this is the bacteria that is causing it. And I tell them, you probably just need to drink a lot of water or rest
vitamin
or
C.
take vitamin C.
something.
And they said, they'll tell me, no, my brother had the same kind of cough. They gave him ciprofloxacin. And I'm like, it's like killing a mosquito with an AK-47. And at the end of the day, what I always tell, especially women, is that when you take these antibiotics for indications that they are not meant for, you are harming your unborn child. Because by the time you need this antibiotic, it doesn't work. Because like you said something very smart, that the microbes, they are very smart. They adapt very fast. And so by the time you use it when you're not supposed to use it, the microbes, they are not causing anything. And you pour down the antibiotics or you pour down the drug, and the microbes, okay, this is how they work, this is how they affect us. Next time when we are doing our thing, when they bring this, we now know how to adapt, and then it doesn't work anymore.
Right.
You know, and so those are some of the things we do in this environment. Or somebody comes into the pharmacy, or I hear people go to patent medicine shops or marketplaces or buses, mix antibiotic for me, or mix antibiotic for my child. And you see young children, if you look around, you might see children maybe in their teens and they have yellow teeth. This is because in their infant years, their mothers probably gave them tetracycline, and that caused yellowing of the teeth. And, you know, these children, it was not due to their own fault. Maybe they just complained of a cold, and then the mother rushes, mix antibiotic for me, and you mess up the life of that child, because, God forbid, when that child has a serious infection and they take some of these antibiotics, they don't work anymore. Why? Because the microbes, the bacteria, they become smarter, in quotes, than they, and like you said, it takes billions of dollars, and it takes years sometimes to come up with some of these antibiotics. We remember many years ago when a simple thing like a cut on the finger will kill someone, you know, before penicillins came. And then when the penicillins came, they called them miracle drugs because, you know, but now penicillins do not work for a lot of people because it has been abused over time.
Right.
Every 10 years or every season, the researchers come up with a new, for example, I think a few years ago, the antibiotic, the cephalosporins came up. And right now, they are being abused, you know. Somebody using a drug as strong as ciprofloxacin for just a cold.
Just a cold. What's it? Can we say what they usually prescribe that for?
Serious soft tissue infections, bone infections, you know, serious. Main thing is that before you take any of these antibiotics, your doctor will probably refer you to a test, a lab, to do some tests. And when the indication is known, they will do a sensitivity test to know which exact antibiotic will be good for that infection. And then it's prescribed. But you find out these days, people just go to the chemist or they don't, in fact, sometimes they abuse you as a healthcare professional. Oh, you don't know what you're doing. And they go down the road, marketplace, a bus stop, or somebody carrying something on their head on the street, and they just mess up their life. The bad thing about that is that if it was just the person taking the drug that is being affected, well, there's nothing you can do. But sometimes a whole generation is being affected because those bacteria, they don't reside just in that person. They reside in the atmosphere. And it's the same bacteria that will cause a cold in you, cause an infection in you, that will cause in me, that will cause in the man down the street.
Not in me.
Definitely not.
You can have the
you know, so these are some of the things that we do in
well,
this
we're
line.
talking about things that can be as simply misusing antibiotics can end up in things like kidney failure, liver failure.
Exactly.
Talk to us about that.
You know, virtually every drug is metabolized in the liver and then eliminated through the kidney. And so when you overload your liver with drugs that you don't need, you're overworking your liver. In fact, I'm sure so many people will attest to the fact that, and medical professionals will also say that these days we are seeing a lot of young people with kidney failure, with liver failure, and trust Nigerians. Sometimes you see a teenager with kidney failure. The first thing that they say, oh, they don't touch them from village.
That's what
sometimes it's not village. They are not that powerful. You know, it's just because of abuse. You know, a drug as simple as paracetamol. You know, people abuse. They take paracetamol for every. I know for a fact that certain people, I mean, if you take a certain dose of paracetamol, it can shut down your system and you die on the spot. I've seen this happen in my practice, where some young guys came into a pharmacy, and looks like they had dead themselves. There's a big problem with codeine in the country recently, and they came and they went into the shop and bought some bottles of Benini with codeine. This was some years ago.
That's a cough syrup.
Yes, a cough syrup, and they downed it at once. They just came out, downed it, and one of them collapsed and died on the spot.
Oh my!
Died right on the spot. And so these are things that happen in the environment, and we need to keep on talking about it, and so that people will know that these things. Once you have need for a drug, no matter what the drug is, no matter how simple, ask your health provider, ask your health care provider, and they will advise you.
And some people always have this challenge that it's going to take too long to get all the tests done and all that, but I'm sure we'll be able to talk about that as well. We're going to take a few minutes, folks, and then we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Now, there's so much to talk about with regards to this topic, and I'm sure we'll be able to get pharmacist Chris back on. But a couple of things I just want to quickly mention. I think animal feeds are now being given antibiotics routinely to just preempt and shut down any infections. And these things are being used indiscriminately. So we're not just talking about the ones that we deliberately put in our mouth. We're talking about what we eat that comes in through the food. The antibiotics are coming through the food. And again, these bacteria, these organisms are learning how to put up with these antibiotics and learn how to adapt and overcome them. So there's a lot of issues there. We don't want to leave this show, this segment, without talking about the options. And one of the things Pharmacist Chris and I were talking about during the break is that these antibiotics damage your gut. They damage, how do we put it, the normal flora?
The normal flora, the environment. Right. Everybody, we all have bacteria living in us. But
the good and the bad.
The good and the bad, yes. The bad ones are the pathogenic ones. Disease-causing ones. When you have an infection and you're prescribed an antibiotic, what it does is that it's not selective most of the time. It causes a disruption in your system, in your gut area. And so that's why sometimes after taking a course of antibiotics, a doctor, the pharmacist will give you things like probiotics, and that helps to restore. Probiotics are like live bacteria.
The good ones.
Good ones, yeah, very, very good ones. And then when you take that, it helps to restore the good flora in your and also helps boost your immunity. Truth being told is that when your immunity is at the top notch, your body can repair and heal itself naturally. And so there are so many natural things that you can actually take. And some of these, for example, a cold. We're taught and we know that a cold will normally resolve itself within 72 hours. If you take some of these supplements, some of these natural things, vitamin C and some of these immune boosters, you'll find that you will not even need to take medication for a cold, no matter what it is, whether it's an antibiotic that people always clamor for, or the simple pro-cold or anything like that. All you just need to do is hydrate yourself very well, make sure you eat well, make sure you take some of these supplements. Some people may say, but these supplements are expensive. But some people say, I can get it from my food and all that. But the truth of the matter is that you need specific amounts in your body. And some of the food, in fact, in this environment, you find that somebody eats bread in the morning, eats rice in the afternoon, eats pounded yam in the evening, and says he has eaten.
He has been well nourished.
And so we need some of these things too. And so when the pharmacist or a doctor prescribes some of these probiotics or supplements for you, don't think he's trying to get money out of your pocket. It's for your own good. It's trying to help boost your immunity.
In fact, my strong conviction, Pharmacist Chris, is that everybody, and I've done a few shows on it, everybody should be on immune boosters, because as a nation, our immunity is subpar. Subpar. So, and it's not, when I say everybody should be, people think, oh, yeah, it's about being on a drug all the time. No. Supplements are different from drugs. Drugs, you can have, again, one of the problems with drugs is resistance to antibiotics and side effects and all that. These are things, what we call nutraceuticals and supplements are things that are crucial. Your immune system needs help all the time. You're supposed to get that from food, but the foods that we commonly eat, like the ones he mentioned, do not provide anything that can help boost your immunity. Just take it from me like that. They don't. So you need live foods, raw fruits and vegetables, especially vegetables, to get the right amount of nutrients. And for the most part, we don't take many of these things live or raw. So it's very, very important that you keep on. Again, you mentioned vitamin C. I would say vitamin D3. I talk about that a lot. We as black people have very low levels of vitamin D3 in general. So we can boost that up.
Yeah, that's right.
And then probiotics, I think that's a great idea too.
Yeah, there are a lot of good ones out there. They may be, some are not so expensive, the good ones are very expensive, but they are actually very good. For example, a child has diarrhea. The first thing is not to run to stop the diarrhea, in quotes. I mean, you need to rehydrate that child.
Of course.
And then immediately after, give him a lot of these probiotics, maybe for a longer time. And first thing, I mean, we're talking about solutions and what the people can do. First thing, don't take any drug without the advice of a healthcare professional, either your doctor or your pharmacist. And then when you go to the pharmacy, even when you go with a doctor's prescription or you're sitting in the doctor's office, please let the doctor or the pharmacist know other drugs that you are taking, because a lot of drugs interact with it. I saw a patient yesterday, I was just telling Dr. Dyer, that has been on omeprazole for a long time and did not realize that omeprazole has some side effects. I mean, every drug, even paracetamol, has side effects. And we found that he's having osteoporosis now, which was due to taking omeprazole for a long period.
So osteoporosis is actually
a side effect.
A side effect and that's
bone
degeneration, pretty much.
Exactly.
So so before the person can be walking down the street and suddenly it just falls off and it breaks his femur or breaks his hip bone because the bone just.
So it's very important. Ask questions. Ask your doctor questions. Ask your pharmacist questions. I'm taking this drug. I want to take this. Is there any problem? Or I'm taking this food. I want to take this drug. Is there any problem?
Right. So any other common drugs? Let's talk about the most common drugs that are abused, that are misused.
I try to, misuse and abuse, they are two different things. When you misuse a drug, you use a drug for a purpose that is not supposed to be used. And when you abuse, it means that you're using a drug to enhance your performance or things like that. A lot of drugs, like we already said, antibiotics are commonly
antimalarials too.
Anti-malaria are common. And one thing I would like to quickly say about anti-malarials, for example, the artemether lumefantrine is used a lot in this, and I hear a lot of people come, I've taken this anti-malaria before, it didn't work. And I asked, how did you take it? I just took one in the morning, one in the evening. And it's not, you don't take that, especially that part. You don't take one in the morning, one in the evening. If you read the pack or you sit down for the pharmacist to explain, you take the first dose at 0 hour and then 8 hours later and then 12 hours and 12 hours. And then what you use, some people say, I can't use water, I have to use, like we call it in this climate, mineral. I don't know where that came from, or some people even use alcohol to take their drugs, and that's very wrong. When you're on this particular, the artemether lumefantrine, it's affected by grape juice, or in fact, some dietary supplements should not be taken at the same time because they cancel the effect.
So water is the best thing to use to take those
For
drugs.
example, like this artemether, you can drink it with milk. Milk helps its absorption, but use plain water. And you need to know the things that you shouldn't be on while you. And then the timing is also very important. Please don't take drugs one in the morning or one in the evening. There are specific times. And then it's important, like we talked about antibiotics. Don't take one maybe you're taking it one a day. You take it in the morning today, you take it in the night tomorrow, you take it in the afternoon. No, try and take it morning. Be consistent. The time, even antihypertensive, the time you take it is important. Most antibiotics work better when you take it just before you go to bed. And
so you have to follow the instructions to the T.
Of course, yeah.
Man, that's so much. That's so much. But
short time.
So much to learn. Too little time to do it. But anyway, I hope you've got a feel for what it is. We're definitely going to have pharmacist Chris come back on. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate your time again.
Thank you.
Obviously, you can watch this video again. It's on the YouTube. It's on NTA. Your Health in Your Hands YouTube is also on our website, brainandbodyfoundation.org. You can catch up with that. And what else do we want to say now?
Do you have questions?
They have questions. Yes. So his number is going to be on the screen, or the number is to pharmacy. Will be. You don't want your number on the screen. I can tell you.
Well, that's why we're trained, to answer as many questions as we can.
They definitely will try, and he'll get a number for you to call. Okay. So thank you again for joining us. Remember, your health is in your hands. Yeah. A health tip for the day is the obvious one. Make sure you just don't use antibiotics or drugs indiscriminately. Get a prescription. Try to test it out. And so with that, this is the end of the show. And thank you, and see you next week. God bless.
NTA Parliament is a dedicated 24-hour channel that broadcasts the activities of the Nigerian Senate, Federal House of Representatives, and all the 36 state houses of assembly. NTA Parliament, strengthening Nigeria's democracy.
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
This is the network service of the NTA.